Just for your information, I'm one of the leaders of the Michigan Wild Turkey Hunters Association. I'm also a Michigan resource steward. But I'm here today speaking for myself. And I own property in Osceola County, which is one of the 12 counties considered for antler point restrictions. I've had an opportunity to talk to and contact many landowners and non-landowners, and I've not found one person that has had an opportunity to have input on what we're proposing here for antler point restrictions. Not one. And I can't find anybody that approves of mandatory restrictions, rather leaving it up to the individual hunter and the landowner. You know, the landowners have a lot of money and effort invested in their land, and they feel they should be the ones to determine what size bucks that they're going to allow on their property. It wasn't too long ago, too many years ago, that the DNR figured we had 50 to 100 hunters per square mile on our state and national forest or public forest. That's not true today. We keep losing more and more and more. You see less and less hunters all the time, less and less camps. And I personally know quite a few people that no longer hunt our state forest lands. In fact, hunting on our state forest is becoming rather pathetic as far as deer hunting. So I tried to find out what the average was for harvest, and probably the average would be one hunter hunts for about 10 years before he harvests a buck on state land. And if antler in Michigan now we lost 380,000 hunters in 16 years in Michigan. We lost half our small game hunters in 10 years. And we can't continue doing that, as 1/3 of our hunters have disappeared. And that was some time ago. We still continue that downward slide. My point is that if antler point restrictions go into effect on a public land hunter, we're going to lose a lot more hunters than what we already have. And I'd like to just real quickly share a little story that I got from Ed's Sport Shop in Baldwin. One of the locals, after 20 years, shot his first buck this last fall. He was so excited about it. He brought the buck to town. He was showing everybody that he could his buck. It was a 4-point. Under the antler point restrictions, he'd have to let that buck probably go for another 20 years. He might not have gone for 20 years. You might just finally give up the ghost. Another point I'd like to make, there's a lot of information out there from different states on CWD, chronic wasting disease. And I'd like to share one study. It comes from north central Iowa. They found that the growth rate for all deer 2.5 years old or older was 27% growth. Every third buck over 2.5 years old and older is affected by CWD. So my point is that the older bucks, the younger bucks have a tendency to stay close to home. The older bucks are the ones that go out and leave their area, and they're the ones that intermingle with receptive does. That's how we're spreading. So how can we really look at having an older age deer that's going to cause us some problems in the future with disease? I'd just like to mention one thing about we're managing deer by ballot. We had doves that we managed by ballot. A lot of us worked hard to defeat Proposal D, which was going to manage bear by ballot. And we worked hard to get Proposal G, which calls for managing our wildlife by science, and that has nothing to do with antler point restrictions. It has nothing to do with science.
Counselor? Commissioners, Director. For the last 12 years, I've been actively participating in promoting neighborhood deer management cooperatives. My travels have taken me from all corners of the Lower Peninsula. My mission has been promoting the virtues of quality deer management, but more specifically, balancing herd numbers and advancing buck age structure within localized whitetail deer herds. Without exception, the attraction for cooperative participants is the allure of seeing, hunting, and eventually tagging older bucks with larger antlers. Benefits being realized by these hunters include success rates that remain consistent, and in many cases, the harvest of their personal best bucks. Hunters and non-hunters alike are enjoying viewing opportunities of these majestic big racked bucks in their summer feeding patterns along rural roadsides. I think it's safe to say that whitetail bucks with big antlers captivate all of us to one degree or another, and their mere presence inspires awe. Increased participation by youth, women, and casual hunters has also been an unexpected benefit. Some of you on this commission have attended some of these co-op meetings and witnessed the enthusiasm and the success attributed to hunting a deer herd that includes a more diverse buck age structure. The department has also taken notice by supporting our efforts in both word and deed, both the Wildlife Division and the Law Division. Last week, I experienced a first when I attended an MSU graduate student's master's thesis defense. Her master's work was based on studying several of these very same neighborhood deer management cooperatives. One of her findings showed that hunter satisfaction levels went from 46% pre-co-op to 75% after being involved in the cooperative. Interestingly, Michigan's hunter satisfaction levels have remained well below 50%, while hunter satisfaction and support levels in DMU 045 Leelanau County and DMU 122 in Delta County remain at 72 and 74% respectively. Both of these DMUs operate under APRs. Those percentages are for you, Mr. Cray. Whether APRs are implemented on a voluntary or mandatory basis, the results, anecdotally, appear to be mirroring each other. Success rates do not suffer, and satisfaction rates appear to increase with APR experience. Co-ops establish guidelines designed to protect yearling bucks based on Michigan Department of Natural Resource harvest data from their respective regions. Typically, these co-ops encourage youth to shoot any legal deer they wish. However, youth are, by and large, pursuing older and bigger bucks because they are present in huntable numbers. No longer are youth concerned about shooting the first antlered deer they may see because they know there are other options. Their realities are not the same of what their mentors were growing up and hunting in Michigan. The white-tailed deer is the most pursued big game species in North America and perhaps the world. For as much time and money has been committed to the sporting pursuit of whitetails over the last century, it has only been recently that organizations like the Quality Deer Management Association, Whitetails Unlimited, and Whitetails Forever have appeared on the scene to educate the layman on the benefits of diversified buck age structure and how to achieve it. Amazingly, the answer is very simple. Allow some bucks the opportunity to live another year or two before targeting them. With 650,000 deer hunters in Michigan, this can best be accomplished through regulatory modifications. Hunters know this and have indicated so with their overwhelming support for them in the most recent surveys. A common mantra among Michigan whitetail hunters is that Michigan can never be like Iowa, Illinois, or Ohio, or any of the other big buck states. While this may be true, that on average most of those states produce bucks with larger antlers in like age classes, it is also true that they have a culture coupled with regulations that encourage a greater protection rate of yearling bucks. In recent years, I have made annual pilgrimages out of state to hunt whitetails. Differences in buck age structure, even on public lands, compared to the average unmanaged private parcel or public tract in Michigan are glaring. Happy hunters are invested hunters. I'm wrapping it up, thank you. Happy hunters are invested hunters. Happy hunters are engaged hunters. And happy hunters participate. And our professional wildlife managers if our wildlife managers are to continue using hunters as their main tool for managing our whitetail herd, then they need to be in tune with what keeps those hunters coming back for more. At this point in history, hunters have indicated support for enhanced limits that create the opportunity to see and hunt older, bigger bucks. Knowing that these limits are not detrimental to the resource, they should be acted upon by this commission. Thank you.
Dick, hands up. Mid-Forest Lodge. I'm here today representing Mid-Forest Lodge from Roscommon County. I want to start by thanking the Natural Resource Commission for this opportunity to express our position on antler point restrictions. Mid-Forest Lodge is an 18,000 acre or 28 square mile hunt club owned and operated by the members for 75 years. Mid-Forest Lodge has had a 3-point on a side antler point restriction since the year 2000. Hunting is the primary tool in deer management, and the 3-point APR rule has provided us both an improved deer hunt and a more naturally balanced deer herd. The Board of Directors of Mid-Forest Lodge has unanimously passed the resolution. Mid-Forest Lodge supports utilization of antler point restrictions for managing Michigan's deer herd. We recommend that the Natural Resource Commission approve the Northwest Lower Peninsula 12-county expansion of the Leelanau County 3-point antler restriction. Additionally, we request the Natural Resource Commission consider expansion of the antler point restrictions to the remaining areas of the northern Lower Peninsula as well as the southern Lower Peninsula. A few things in addition to that. Deer population dynamics. One big driving factor, and when you look at the population dynamics, there's essentially 3. Additions, non-hunting mortality, and hunting harvest mortality. The hunting harvest, hunting mortality. It's important to recognize that the hunting harvest is the only dynamic that can be and is biased to any significant extent in the harvest of white-tailed deer by age and sex. The hunting harvest dynamic is the only factor that can result in a drastically reduced age structure in the buck population. A little history. The hunting regulation requiring a buck to have a spike horn with a minimum of 3 inches is about 90 years old, and was implemented primarily as a means to define the difference between antlered and antlerless deer in order to maintain population control. There is evidence that protecting yearling bucks provides a benefit to the deer herd. A lot has changed in 90 years. If research was done today to compare the 2 options and determine which was the best for the deer herd and the hunter, it is logical that the more naturally balanced deer herd would be the best option.
My name is Ryan Ratajczak. I'm here representing the Northwest Michigan Quality Deer Management Association. I am here today to voice support for the adoption of APRs in the 12 counties in Northwest Lower Michigan. As president of the sponsoring organization, I want to thank the commission, and in particular, Chairman Richardson, for overseeing the process put in place to address proposal requests for implementation of mandatory antler restrictions. As you know, our group has followed the procedures put in place, which undoubtedly places a heavy burden on the sponsoring organization to prove such a proposal has adequate support for implementation. As the process requires, our organization held numerous public meetings throughout the proposal region. We also participated in multiple radio and TV interviews, advertised in various outdoor publications, and had many articles and press releases published in order to inform the public of our proposal. It was through countless volunteer hours from dedicated individuals that I sit before you today and encourage your votes for acceptance of our proposal for a 5-year test period beginning with the 2013 season. As recognized by the overwhelming support of those surveyed within the 12-county proposal area, it is with no surprise the majority of hunters are open to new regulations regarding the harvest of antlered deer. The results of this survey, and in particular the response rate, shows hunters are eager to have a say in how our deer herd is managed within our state. These results complement not only those received from hunters in DMU 045, but also support from hunters in DMU 122, and more recently, hunters and non-hunters alike on Beaver Island. As you may recall, 5 years after initially implementing APRs in DMU 045, hunters and landowners supported continuing these regulations with a 72% approval rate. As well as unanimous decision was reached between hunters, landowners, and business owners on Beaver Island to implement APRs just 2 short years ago. Simply put, APRs are gaining in popularity amongst hunters as a means to increase the buck age structure, as shown not only by recent surveys completed by our DNR staff, but those in other states as well. Why are hunters eager for a change and therefore overwhelmingly support this proposal? In particular, hunters have become more aware of how, if implemented correctly, APRs can result in opportunities which they may not otherwise have had. It wasn't until the data from DMU 45 was readily available to the public that those outside of this area became more interested in the results. Many hunters, either against or skeptical about how APRs could affect buck age structure, became supporters after examining the multiple years' worth of harvest data collected by the DNR. One can easily see why these regulations would be acceptable by the majority of hunters simply by comparing the buck harvest success rates prior to and after implementation of APRs. As shown by 10 years worth of data from DMU 45, buck harvest success rates are at or above those prior to implementation of APRs. The data clearly shows a majority of yearling bucks are protected under these regulations. Even so, hunters are now allowed the opportunity to harvest a buck at a rate higher than prior to APR implementation. In many cases, these bucks happen to be a year or two older and generally have larger antlers and of greater body weights. Harvest rates aside, there was another point of data that clearly set DMU 45 apart from many of its surrounding counties. That point being the hunter retention and participation rates in Leelanau County compared to those within the same region. It is apparent from the data available that APRs did not cause a mass exodus of hunters from this area, as some would have claimed. In fact, DMU 45 boasts the highest hunter retention rate in the region, even with its stricter buck harvest regulations. Participation rates for both youth and adult hunters have increased over the past 10 years under APRs. On the flip side, other counties within the region have not been so fortunate on a comparative level. As multiple factors can attribute to fluctuations in these rates, it is not to say the implementation of APRs alone will cure these declines, but certainly has shown to not adversely affect them. Over the past 10 years, hunters young and old, new to the sport, and seasoned veterans have experienced opportunities under APRs in Leelanau County, which are now sought after by those in surrounding counties. This includes both public and private land hunters, the so-called weekend warriors and everyday Joe hunters, as well as those who spend the majority of their vacation days in a tree stand in hope of having the opportunity to experiencing a successful time afield. In closing, and speaking on behalf of the thousands of hunters who have voiced their support for this proposal, I simply ask you to follow the recommendations of the Department of Natural Resources, as supported by nearly 7 out of 10 hunters for implementation of antler point restrictions in northwest lower Michigan, beginning with the 2013 deer season. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Ryan, have you looked and had a chance to study at the antlerless harvest recommendations in the same area yet?
I just saw those this morning.
To the extent we're going to consider them next month, I would appreciate getting a view of the organization on those prior to it being voted.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Michigan QDMA grant active and involved the last 5-6 years of helping out the proposal initiative. I'm 44 years old, and I've lived and hunted in Leelanau County for the last 20 years. I've been hunting in the state of Michigan for 32 years, and I support APRs 100%. Personal hunting experience, I have private UP land. Like many in the state, my family has bounced around from spot to spot to spot to spot, from state land to somebody's farm to this farm, and it's been difficult. Trying to find new and productive hunting grounds is a tough thing. My family, we ended up going up to Iron County, and we enjoyed our deer camp up there for 20 years. The last 15 years ago, I acquired 80 acres up there. I'm surrounded by the Fence River and rich, lush agricultural property. We've invested time, money, resources, blind, food plots, timber management, you name it. We've been there, and we've invested so much of our resource dollars. All this effort to provide my family good deer hunting, we tried to encourage our neighbors to pass up on year and a half of bucks, has been no avail. I asked myself, why am I doing this every year with little success? My body might be in the UP at deer camp, but where I live in Leelanau County, that's where my heart's at. Despite my investment of time, money, and resources, I leave the UP disappointed. And so I have property that half the time I don't want to be there, where I should be home, where my wife tells me there's bucks running around my backyard. So, personal hunting experience in Leelanau County. I have witnessed firsthand the transformation of the deer herd in Leelanau County. Like I said, I've lived there for 20 years, and I've lived and hunted from 93 to 2002, when we obviously pre-APR. And besides hunters of all ages harvesting nice bucks over the last 10 years, the main benefit and response I see and hear daily is we have happy hunters. You drive around and they might not harvest a buck, but you hear their stories of we didn't harvest that big 6-point or big 8-point, but we've seen 8 of the bucks. And this is a common goal. We get asked all the time, where's the best hunting in Leelanau? And I tell them, from Traverse to Empire to Northport. And even in northern Benzie County, we're getting breeder bucks that are filtering over to the southern counties. So this is a common thing of, obviously, and I look at it, the electricity, the excitement and buzz coming from hunters and non-hunters is overwhelming. I have friends that are not even hunters, and they're like, I've seen the most beautiful bucks they've ever seen in their life just running around. UPS drivers, telling us that, just driving around the county, it's been unbelievable, the deer herd transformation of a balanced herd. Also, I have helped out with QDMA on the Traverse City Hunting and Fishing Expo booth for multiple years. And I have countless stories where fathers and daughters have come up to us, thanking us, from Wexford County, Benzie County, Grand Traverse County, who come up to hunt the public land. Or if they're able to hunt with a farm, they're able to hunt that. And they said they both, they've harvested beautiful 2.5-year-old bucks. They're, nice 8-point. Kudos. That's exactly what this program's about. We want them to graduate to the next level. Again, I too have harvested my best buck in the last 10 years, and the bucks that I've seen just by witnessing and shining and, and word of mouth. So, to wrap it up, for these reasons, I support the adoption of APRs for the 12-county region. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions?
Just one comment.
Commissioner
Does your
Nichols?
wife hunt?
She does. She's a bird hunter, though.
I just wondered, she might want you to stay up north.
She texts me all the time. She's like, there's a big 8-pointer running through the property. And I'm like, don't tell me that. I'm watching porcupines in the UP.
Red Trust? APRs?
Yeah, it's Trusky.
Thanks.
Please get this CH part in when it by the time I got to you guys. But I've been dealing with that my whole life, so we'll get over it.
The director said to say it like that.
The chairman's always right.
I'll go with that.
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Fred Trusky. I live in Traverse City. And I am also part of Northwest Michigan QDMA and worked with Kevin and Ryan and others to, see this process through till today. I come at you from a different perspective, however. I hunt in here on Manistee National Forest in Manistee County. I fully support the antler restriction proposal. Once I saw the 10 years of DNR harvest data from Manistee and Benzie County, it was apparent to me and to the fellows that I've hunted with for decades that the antler restrictions in Leelanau County create a far superior hunting than what we were experiencing down in Manistee County. Like most of us here, I was raised deer hunting. My grandfather, dad, and uncles taught me well, and I haven't missed a St. Antlers Day since I was 3 years old. For years, however, we shot the first legal buck that came in front of our blinds. That's all I knew, that's how I was taught, that's how I did it. I actually used to think these guys behind me were full of it, we'll leave it at that. When I saw that data, I changed my mind right then and there. I now realize we're our own worst enemies. I have now experienced the improvement of hunting with just passing yearling bucks for only 2 years now on public land. I've seen more mature bucks in the last couple of years than I saw in the previous 25 years hunting that same exact ground. I passed 17 1.5-year-old bucks during the 2013 season between bow and gun season. I am a recurve hunter, so that is really hard to pass up those shots when you hunt with a recurve bow. Sadly, however, well over half of those bucks were killed by other hunters. So it was, not very productive. The prospects of those bucks being allowed to survive for another year are truly exciting to me. I know that in Manistee County, we can have exactly what they have in Leelanau County, maybe even better because of better mineral content and all those kind of things that they can grow healthier deer down there. I now spend more days afield and a lot more time in December chasing whitetails than I ever did because I now know there's still a decent buck or two out there in the woods. Something that I could put that 4-point tag on should I decide to do that. This mirrors what has happened in Leelanau County for the last 10 years. With antler restrictions and a more balanced deer herd, hunters spend more time afield there because I now know there's still a decent buck or two out there in the woods. Something that I could put that 4-point tag on should I decide to do that. This mirrors what has happened in Leelanau County for the last 10 years. With antler restrictions and a more balanced deer herd, hunters spend more time afield. Where I hunt in Manistee County, however, many years our camp has had the woods to ourselves on the 4th day of the season. It's busy for a day or two. By the 4th day, we are the only ones left. And that continues to get worse and worse. That's sad. The local perception is that all the bucks are gone. Hunter, and in a lot of cases, to some degree they're right, because if it's got 3 antlers, it's gone. Or 3-inch antlers, it's gone. Hunters afield directly benefit local gas stations, restaurants, grocery stores, and sporting goods stores. If we are still out hunting, we are still out spending money and fostering the local economies. Just ask our wives. With this type of perception out there, it is no wonder that hunter participation has dropped in the proposed counties by as much as 25% in the last 10 years, while Leelanau has actually increased slightly. That statistic I find very discouraging. Every hunter lost is one less voice we have in Lansing when key legislation comes up regarding our sport, and one less person to introduce the youth of our state to our great hunting heritage. Men and women of the Commission, antler point restrictions are not the cure-all for deer hunting in the state of Michigan, but they have proven that they can help improve it. 69% of those surveyed said they are willing to give it a try. In Washington, they call that a mandate. I hope you agree. Any questions?
I'm one of the founders of, I'm William J. Bunnick, and I'm one of the founders of Leelanau Whitetails. It was the applicant group for the quality deer management in area 045. Okay, as well as that, I was president of Leelanau Whitetails for its first 10 years. I was born and raised in Leelanau County and have hunted in the county all of my life. Okay, Leelanau County has a long history of antler restrictions. Antler restriction hunting began in South Fox Island there in the 80s and continues there now. The Little Finger Peninsula, Leelanau, has used quality deer management for over 10 years now and is strongly supported by the majority of its hunters. Hunters' collaboration with the Department of Natural Resources in the management of white-tailed deer, of the white-tailed deer herd through QDM, results in hunters taking pride, and to me this is very important, ownership of deer management. I believe that Michigan QDM encourages young hunters to take advantage of hunting opportunities in our great state of Michigan and keeps our own residents hunting in our state. I strongly support QDM antler restriction and ask you to please continue to expand this deer management program to all the surveyed counties. When hunters take ownership of quality deer management, everyone benefits.
Thank you, you got my name right.
I didn't listen to him. I'm on a roll.
Hello, my name is Matt Tarsa, and I appreciate the chance to speak to you about the APR proposal because I feel I can offer you a unique perspective. I'm a lifelong resident of Leelanau County and have hunted white-tailed deer since before I was of legal age. I have never missed a season since, and I don't plan to as long as I am able. I am also a crop and cattle farmer on over 200 acres there, and have been for well over 30 years. I've owned and operated a professional taxidermy studio for the same amount of time, and spent 8 years working for a high-fence whitetail and elk hunting enclosure and a separate elk breeding facility. I'm a member of the Michigan Farm Bureau and the original chairman of education for Leelanau Whitetails. I feel like a double agent. I also feel like I've had a front row seat during the whole TB and CWD process, following all the new rules and regulations for both the cattle and deer handling. All the while being caught in the middle of a blame game and a finger pointing, not to mention the DNR and NRC bash sessions. I have been on the receiving end of both good and bad policy making by the DNR, NRC, and Michigan Farm Bureau. After many years of an active APR in Leelanau County, we no longer need to speculate. The statistics have proven the overwhelming positives over the negatives, the majority in favor over the very few against. The one effect there has been no statistic on is the positive energy and attitude the APR has created for deer hunting in Leelanau County. Observing for over 30 years as a taxidermist and hunter, there has never been the buzz around deer season as there is now. Even the naysayers will admit now that this APR is working. However, the most impressive effect for me has been the change in the culture of hunting in a single generation. Kids and young adults see their hunting tags as licenses to manage deer rather than licenses to just kill one. They understand that deer are a renewable natural resource and that guidelines set by the DNR and NRC are there to protect that resource for all of our benefit. They get that they're the frontline managers by choosing when to pull the trigger or release an arrow, a concept our generation is just getting a grip on. Talk about hunter recruitment. When we began discussing an APR for Leelanau County, my hope was only that my kids and I would see a mature buck at least once during the season. Not only have we seen mature bucks, but successfully harvested them each year with recurve bows to boot. Deer management has become a year-round family affair, learning doe groups as well as buck groups, and being just as proud to harvest a doe as a buck when needed. This APR has way more to offer than any statistics can show you. As a crop farmer, I can tell you the DNR has great damage control programs, and this APR has had no ill effect for me. As a taxidermist, I can tell you I turn work away, and the quality and health of the deer is phenomenal. As a very proud dad, I can tell you that there is a golden opportunity at your fingertips. I hope you'll give this APR a chance to prosper for this and future generations. Thank you.
Any questions? Big man.
Don't tell any of the officers I started hunting early.
Ray McNitt, APRs.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the director and the commission for the opportunity to speak here today. I guess I'll start out my personal hunting experience. I've hunted in Leelanau County for the past 16 years. I grew up hunting in the Mesac area of Wexford County prior to moving to Leelanau County. I've hunted white-tailed deer for approximately 30 years. Since hunting in DMU 045 under the current antler point restrictions that went into effect in 2003, I have killed my best 7 Michigan bucks all on public land during the last 10 years. I have access to hundreds of acres of family ag land in Wexford County, but private agricultural land there does not compare to the quality of hunting on public land under the current APR rules in DMU 045. Antlered harvest rates have remained constant, just on older age class bucks, while hunter retention numbers, youth included, in DMU 045 are the best of any of the proposed 12 counties. I am also part of our family Christmas tree farm in Wexford County. We have 13,000 Fraser fir Christmas trees on 80 acres of land. The trees have been fenced since the original planting, not because of deer rub damage that can occur, but because of browse damage that will occur during winter months. Bucks do not typically rub Christmas trees due to the dense foliage of marketable trees. My father-in-law has been a deer processor in the Mesac area for well over 25 years and is a farmer there as well. My entire family and my wife's family are in full support of the APR expansion to the 12 counties of the northwestern Lower Peninsula. I have also included 3 Leelanau County orchardist letters signed by 6 individual farmers from my local area that are in support of the 12 county proposal and the current APR in Leelanau County. I've also included our APR support list of over 2,400 individual Michigan hunters and landowners who have signed support for this proposal. I think it also needs to be noted at this time, there are many farmers in Leelanau County and in the 12 proposed counties that support this APR proposal, and they are not accurately represented by the Farm Bureau. As members of both Leelanau Whitetails, the DMU 045 sponsoring group, original group in Leelanau, and Northwest Michigan QDMA, the current 12 county sponsoring group, I would like to stress the amount of support that the original APR and DMU 045 currently have, as well as the support that the current 12 county proposal has demonstrated. DMU 045's resurvey after 6 years under the APR showed a 72% hunter and landowner support. And that was with the 6% don't care, no opinion that used to be in the survey. If you took the 6% out that is out of that survey now, our support would be close to 80% in that county. I think that's an overwhelming speaking of the hunter support, and that was when they did a landowner survey as well. So, the current 12 county APR proposal has shown a 69% approval rate with an 80% return rate. This clearly indicates that the minimum required approval rate of 66% with a 50% return rate has been well exceeded. The sponsoring group has patiently followed the DNR's proposal process and even expanded their original proposal size per the DNR's request. When we started this process 5 to 6 years ago, there was a moratorium in place at that time. We waited and waited, that finally came off. And when we first took our proposal, we sat down with Russ Mason, Traverse City. We had Benzie in Grand Traverse County. He said, we'd like to see you guys go to a bigger area than this. We said, we know we got support here. We're a little nervous about all of this. He said, we'd like to see you go to a bigger area than this. So we went ahead and did that a little apprehensively. The survey came back and showed the support that we needed. So that's where we're at today. The DNR's Wildlife Division has clearly indicated that they have no concern of any detrimental biological effects on the deer herd due to the implementation of this APR, and they have recommended to the NRC board the implementation of the APR based on the survey results for the 2013 season. While there have been a small minority of outspoken critics, nearly 7 of 10 Michigan hunters have clearly indicated support for this proposal. In conclusion, I would simply ask the NRC board to follow the DNR Wildlife Division's recommendation with the supermajority of hunters' support and to implement the proposed antler point restriction for the 5-year trial period beginning for the 2013 season. Thank you for this opportunity to comment.
Good afternoon, Chairman Richardson, Director Cray, Commissioners, Stacy, just so you're not left out. Well, somebody already included him, so. He'll expect it every month. I'm Jim Sweeney, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Concerned Sportsmen of Michigan. As you are aware, we have concerns over 2 specific outcomes that result from mandatory antler restrictions. APRs increase the number of dispersing yearling bucks, which may contribute to the spread of communicable disease outside of core areas. APRs also substantially increase the number of older bucks in the herd. Older bucks have significantly higher prevalence rates for bovine tuberculosis and chronic wasting disease. Neither of those facts are in dispute within the scientific community. Other states have shared their concerns over dispersal, as evidenced by their decisions to rescind APRs in areas where disease has been found. That concern was also noted in Michigan's recently updated CWD response plan. The Wildlife Division has previously acknowledged the threat posed by older bucks in terms of disease transmission, and has indicated a desire to reduce the number of older bucks in the herd as part of disease risk mitigation efforts. Michigan has spent over $200 million of taxpayer money in the last decade attempting to mitigate the threat that bovine tuberculosis poses to dairy and cattle farmers in northern Michigan. The restoration of TB-free status for 58 counties in the Lower Peninsula that occurred in 2011 was a major accomplishment. Unfortunately, we are now faced with the fact that TB has been found on farms in 3 of the counties that recently had their TB-free status restored. Due to the fact that there has been very little testing of the deer herd outside of the TB zone in recent years, we don't know whether or not any deer in those counties will be found to have TB. It will probably be at least a year or so until enough testing has been completed to be able to answer that question with much certainty. We certainly hope that's not the case, but since an overwhelming majority of cases where farms in Michigan have become infected with TB have been attributed to deer-cattle contact, it remains a very real possibility. Given this current threat to TB-free status in the Lower Peninsula, the last thing that we need at this point is an increase in disease prevalence in the deer herd in other parts of the NLP, specifically those counties located in the Modified Accredited Advanced Zone, which are also included in the Northwest 12 APR initiative. The DNR suspects that TB already exists in the deer herd at low levels in Antrim, Emmett, and Charlevoix counties, and we know that about 20% of the farms in Michigan that have tested positive for TB in the last decade have been located in those 3 counties. Logic, common sense, and the overwhelming majority of scientific evidence that is available indicates that it would be a huge mistake to implement regulations that have the potential to exacerbate the bovine tuberculosis problems that are currently faced by the agricultural community in northern Michigan. We would once again ask the Commission to take these facts into consideration and would respectfully request that the Natural Resources Commission place a moratorium on the implementation of any mandatory antler point restrictions in any county located in the Modified Accredited Advanced Zone until TB-free status has been restored to those counties by USDA and the Michigan Department of Agriculture.
Amy Trotter, MUCC.
Actually, it's been tried several times, but we do require a supermajority, a 2/3 majority, to take a position where it would require our staff to go forward and advocate for a change in law or wildlife order. So that's never been reached among our membership at our annual meeting. So I can't say whether we support or oppose the current Northwest Michigan proposal. However, we have supported the process. I was a part of the 2010 work group where we talked about the antler point restriction process. And you know, looking at that and looking at how this group has petitioned appropriately and utilized that process, I would ask that you respect that process and not go beyond it. That's really our only concern, is that, you know, however you decide to vote for or against the proposal, is that we stick to the 12 counties that are being proposed and perhaps not go beyond it this year. That would be consistent with the process. That's our feeling. So again, respectful of that process that the stakeholders did help develop and that you helped to implement.
Also with the LPDMI, thanks for the opportunity to speak. You each have a copy of a more detailed letter with figures that I'll be referring to. I'm the data guy director, in case you haven't figured that out. I'm in support of APRs in the 12 counties. You know that hunter support in Leelanau County was 72% after 5 years of APRs. And you know that it produces the highest percentage of 8-point and larger bucks of any county in the state by far. The harvest of yearling bucks has dropped from 65% prior to APRs to 20% over the last 3 years. Harvest of 3.5 and older bucks has risen from 13 to 50% over the same period. All this happened without a reduction in buck harvest rates or hunter success rates, but it also happened without a decline in hunter numbers. Looking at the first figure, over the last decade, there has been an average decline in hunter numbers of 20% in the 12 counties, ranging from a decline of 8% in Emmett County to 32% in Kalkaska County, while Leelanau numbers have remained stable. Moving to the next chart, we see that this is not an isolated occurrence. DMU 122 in the UP has had APRs since 2001. APRs were also implemented in 152, 155, and 252, but were discontinued in those DMUs in 2006. Since then, hunter numbers are up 24% in DMU 122, and they're down by 8%, 18%, and 17% in the other 3 DMUs. These are very conservative numbers. Because the numbers are conservative, some of the worst hit counties are underestimated. Looking at the last 2 years compared to the pre-ATR seasons, hunter numbers are down 37% in Kalkaska, 34% in Lake and Manistee, and 30% in Wexford County. The final figure shows a chart of the last decade in Kalkaska County, which should serve as a shocking indicator of the rate of decline in hunter numbers there. Over 4,000 hunters gone in 11 seasons. To continue with the status quo would be to ignore a disaster happening right in front of us. I cannot prove that APRs will stem this decline, but the data counter the widely expressed notion that APRs will cause hunters to become more frustrated and quit. In fact, it seems more likely that hunters might be more satisfied and more motivated to hunt under APRs. I hope you will not continue the status quo, but instead decide to implement APRs in the 12 counties and eventually throughout the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions?
My name's Kirk Narker. I'm a representative of the Lower Peninsula Deer Management Initiative, and I don't want to beat a dead horse to death, as they say, or keep beating a dead horse, but I'm here to show my support for antler point restrictions for the Northwest 12 and any further expansions in the rest of the state. As an avid out-of-state hunter, I can tell you that I spend a lot of money going out of state to secure better deer hunting opportunities. And I'm really looking forward to the day that I can spend a lot more of my money here at home in our own state rather than traveling to Illinois and Wisconsin and some of the other states that I've visited. So not to take up a lot of your time, I just want to say that I'm all for the APRs. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you for your time. Now I understand where all the surveys went out. They went out to all the QDA members so that they could control the vote and the commission. I've owned 2 lands on trout streams, and the special interest groups have kind of messed up my trout fishing, so I quit trout fishing. I don't buy stamps anymore. Now I understand that the pike regulations are being changed. I don't understand the spots, what size pike or anything I can catch, so I guess I'll stop pike fishing. But I'm not going to stop deer hunting if you do the APRs. I have 2 sons and 2 grandsons. I own some land in Osceola County. I don't know the man that was back here before, but we enjoy our deer hunting. It was a thrill for me to own this land and take my kids up there hunting and my grandkids. And over the last 4 years, we've killed 8 bucks under the present regulations. My grandsons were thrilled because they got spike horns, 4 points, 3 points. Of those 8 bucks, only 2 of them would meet the APRs. And we're not ashamed of those deer. I know what trophies are. I was the first person in Michigan to get the commemorative Bucks Grand Slam. I think you all know what that is. So I know what trophies are, but you're trying, these special interest groups are trying to control my own property, the property that I bought to pay taxes on. They aren't paying my taxes. Why shouldn't I be able to shoot the deer that come onto my property? If they want to have APRs, let them practice it on their own property. Let them do it where they want to. Why force it on me? It's not right. I noticed at the beginning of this meeting today, nobody said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Is that because you don't want freedom and justice for all? That's what it says in there, and that's not what we're getting if you do APRs. You had a thing up here that said family friendly fishing, kind of tongue-tied. But let's do family-friendly hunting. Let's let the families decide what deer they want to hunt on their own properties. It's not right to take my rights away from me on my property. I think that's all I need to say. Oh, there is one more thing. If you don't think we have quality deer management, look at the trophy pages in these magazines. 2 magazines come out every month. And in those pages, there's quality deer in every one of those pages. That's 24 issues, and they're not repeats. We already have it. We don't need any more of it.
Thank you for remaining here late and hearing out everyone in the audience here that has things to say. I didn't come with a prepared message. I was kind of cast into this role today because I was able to make it to the meeting. I bring you greetings from the Traverse City area and Leelanau County and Grand Traverse County, where the cherry blossoms have just opened up. It's a beautiful scene. If you've not been there yet in the last few days, try to get over there because we're having one of those magical blooms this time of the year where everything's looking good at this point, and we're all knocking on wood for weather that supports a good full crop and all of that. But I'm here as a representative of the farming community there. I'm a long-term Michigan resident, was born in the state and have spent most of my life here. I'm a wine grower, a member of the wine community in the Grand Traverse area, as well as a cherry fruit farmer on both peninsulas, the Leelanau Peninsula and the Old Mission Peninsula, and a member of the Leelanau Hort Society, the Horticulture Society. And the message that I bring to you today is that, and forgive me again for needing to look at my notes here, I may be a little bit erratic, but the message is that it seems that the survey that was initially put out, when it was, and I'm not specific on the dates, but when the APR was put together for Leelanau County, that the survey went out primarily to people with an interest in hunting and people with an interest perhaps or who are residents with smaller, they were landowners but perhaps had a smaller interest in the county. The Leelanau Hort Society could not find a single significant landowner, meaning primarily a farmer in the county, who received one of these surveys. I did hear today that somebody else mentioned that they had a couple of farmers who were in support of the APR in Leelanau County, so I could very well be wrong in that, but I'm just telling you what Leelanau Hort Society has stated. And that the cherry farming community and the grape growing community is seeing significant damage being done to their crops, to their orchards, to their vineyards as a result of these larger deer, larger racks, creating larger rubs, and having more significant issues with their territorial boundaries. We've seen more tree damage, we've seen more vineyard damage, we've seen more significant issues with these agricultural crops, and basically the cherry farmers are saying, look, we realize that there are positive elements to this, but Leelanau County, Grand Traverse County, these fruit belt producing regions are very unique within the state. And we need to find a way to make sure that we're looking at a balanced approach in this, and that we're not only hearing one voice, and certainly a voice that's in support of the hunting community, but also that in support of the farming community. With that said, thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Any questions, Lee?